Hey guys, welcome back to Horticulture Geek. Join me today as we work on some projects here in the garden. Welcome back to Horticulture Geek. I'm Ray. Thank you so much for joining me today here on the channel. So today we are going to be working on a few projects around the garden. We're fixing to open the swimming pool for the season, and I've got some projects that have to get done in the flower beds and hanging baskets as well. Now, one of the projects you can kind of see right behind me, I've got this hanging basket right here, and it's gonna go on the arbor right there. And I've already got one completely done. I'm taking them out of the plastic containers they come in from the garden center, and I'm putting them in my own hanging baskets. Okay, so step one, I've got to clear out all the soil and debris from last year's basket and get the basket loaded up with fresh potting soil so we can get this hanging basket put in place. So let's get working on that. Okay, so I've got us on a close-up with this basket because this basket has a challenge that a lot of gardeners face. And so if you're a gardener, you may run into this. So this is a one-piece basket. If you look here where the chains meet the hook, there's no place for that to come apart. And then likewise, if we look here on the ring that connects, there's no place for it to come apart either. And so now this is completely fine if you're going to put individual little plants into this hanging basket. But since I am starting with a huge pre-grown hanging basket, I'm just transferring pots, these chains are going to get in the way. It's going to be hard to get the plant in here without breaking branches and flowers off of my flowers. So it's really a simple process, even though there's no clasp or thing to unhook. I'm just going to take a pair of needle nose pliers, and we're going to come right in here, and hopefully you can see that. Let me get to where you can see that a little better right there. And I'm just going to grab one of the links in the chain, and I'm going to open it up just enough for the next loop on the chain to come off, okay? And now then, and I only really have to do this to that one chain, and now then the others fold back out of the way, and I can work on this container. All right, so now that I've got that out of the way, I'm gonna get all this old dirt out of here, and we'll come back when we're ready to fill it up. Okay, so as you can see, I've got my hanging basket. I've removed all that old soil. I am reusing my cocoa liner from last year. It has plenty of life left in it for this year. Some of the top edges are pretty frayed, and that's okay. That's where birds have picked at it, water, and it's just aged. It's fine. It still has plenty of life in it for this growing season. The other thing I have in here, which I've mentioned in previous videos throughout the years, are my water wells. These come from Kinsman Garden Company. So if you go to kinsman.com, you can find these. They're on their website. And these create a water reservoir in the bottom of my hanging basket. If you've grown hanging baskets in full sun before, you know that one of the challenges you face is keeping those hanging baskets watered. So we're dealing with a limited amount of soil, a lot of sun, a lot of heat, and plants that need water to thrive, okay? So this is just one of those very inexpensive, cheap products, and you can see it's rounded, it's a bowl. It literally fits right into the bottom of my hanging basket. I'm gonna bury it in the soil, but every time this container is watered, it's going to top off that reservoir. So as each day goes, the roots of my plants will have a reservoir of water they can tap into to drink as much as they need. Without this, in a hanging basket situation, every time you water, the water's just gonna go right through. so the plant can get what it can get, but then the rest of the water drains right through your container. So this solves that problem, and it gives the plant access to water that it otherwise would not have. So for full sun containers, this is a huge trick to keep you successful. Now, I've got this done, so let me put a base level or base layer of dirt on the bottom of my container. Okay. So I've literally just buried that water reservoir, and you can kind of see it in there still, rocking around. So it's there. I've not buried it deep. Get you back where you can see what I'm doing. So next step, biotone. So we're gonna sprinkle a little biotone down here. Okay. There we go. So now I have a base layer of soil in my hanging basket. My water well is covered, and I've got biotone added throughout the bottom layer. Now it's time to work on getting the plant into this basket. And to do that, we're going to use our standard trick of taking the plant out of the pot and using the pot to fill soil in around where it goes. So here's that. Okay, so as you can see, we're working with a Super Tunia basket. So first step is I'm just going to get the hanger off of this pot. And these just clip right onto the side of the container. Very super easy with this particular style to get them off the container. Okay, my hanger's out of the way. Now I'm just going to gently reach into the container and get a firm hold on the base of this root ball without breaking branches of my plant. And this is the tricky part where you really have to take your time and make sure you get in there to where you're not going to tear your plants apart. Okay. Just like that. And now then I'm just going to set this down. Okay. So this is what is now going to become my template to make sure I have enough space for that root ball. So we're just going to backfill around this. Okay. So now, as you can see, I'm left with a well. But now, some of you have probably already thought that well doesn't look deep enough for that plant's root structure. And you're correct. And so we're just going to take some of the existing root structure off of this container. All right, and now that I've done that, I can do a little bit more backfilling as needed to fill in any gaps around this root ball. Okay, so some of you may be thinking, what in the world did he just do? Yes, I ripped off roots from the bottom, but I've given the roots places to go with a wider growing area. You may not have to do that step in your container. If you don't have to shrink your root ball, don't do it. But in my situation with this basket, and I really like the way that this basket looks and I like using it, it is a wide basket, not a deep basket. And so sometimes ripping off some of these roots is necessary. It won't hurt the long-term stability of the plants to do that, especially since I have the biotone in this soil, because that biotone is a root stimulant fertilizer. So it's going to help those roots quickly heal and continue growing to support these plants. So now then, I've got this in here. I've got it completely packed in with soil. I've added more soil around the edges, so it is completely in there nice and level. So now all I've got to do is get my chain back in place, which is gonna be much easier for me in this basket since I took one off. So let's get them put back. Okay, so now I have a hold of my chain. I'm just going to bring one chain up and fish it through the branches of the petunias or whatever plant you have, right where it's supposed to be. Then I'm gonna move over to the next connected chain. And you can see my loose chain's over here. I'm just gonna kind of plop it where it needs to go while I work on getting this chain in. Okay. And now then, I just have to bring my one chain back over. Let me fish it through the branches of my plants. And I'm back where I started right here. And now I can just link my chain links back together. And then using my same pair of pliers, I can clamp that one link back in place so that it doesn't come off again. All right, so now we have our hanging basket in a pretty container ready to go in the garden, and we don't have to worry about the store-bought plastic container. Okay, here we are with project 2, and as you can see, we've got our other hanging baskets hung up already. We'll take a closer look at those in a second. So for this project, I have this hanging basket. It's a chicken wire basket with a printed fabric liner, and I have already filled it up with soil and with biotone. Now, this is just an extra basket. I had some extra impatiens. I've got a shade spot. And then I just went and dug up some creeping Jenny from my garden. Ooh, that has an earthworm in it. Okay. Got a good earthworm in that clump. He can just stay. So this is a good way if you've got a few extra things but not enough to fill a basket. If you have things in your garden you can use, then use those things. Creeping Jenny, to me, I like it. It can be invasive, so unless you want a good ground cover, be very careful with it. But I love it. I love the chartreusey light green color. It brings a bright pop to a shade area. and then it just hangs over the side of containers really well. So I'm just gonna pop a couple of these in this basket, fill it with impatiens, and then we're gonna go hang it where it's gonna go over in a shady spot. Okay, so not a huge full basket quite yet, but it will be very shortly. Let me go get it in place. All right, it is the next day, and my next project for the weekend, which as you can tell I've already started, is we're opening the pool. And no, this is not gardening related, but it's the project that I'm working on, and so I thought I'd bring you on for at least a piece of it. So what I've already done to catch you up to speed off camera, obviously we cleaned the cover off, then we pulled the cover off and let it dry. All of the cover anchor bolts have been screwed back into the patio, and I came through last night and I rinsed off the patio real good with just a high pressure regular hose, not a pressure washer, and got it all cleaned up. And I did, last night in the dark, I did an initial treatment of algicide and shock, and I've got my chlorine tablets in the water as well. So now it's the next day, and I need to do another application of shock, another application of algicide, and the pool is already looking so much better. So it should just be a few days and we'll have that done. And as the focal point of the garden, this is really important for me to get this done. And so that's where we're at. So here's what I'm gonna do for right now. I had to go out and buy a new bucket of shock, and I'm just using Refresh, okay? All right, so I've got here an old bucket that is completely empty and clean of the exact same product, okay? Now, if you're, if you have a pool, if you're trying to figure out your own pool stuff, never mix chemicals. Shocks and chlorines manufactured at different facilities use different ingredients. And when you mix chemicals, think back to your science class, you get a boom. So chlorine and shock is no exception to that. So you don't ever want to mix products like that. You will get a boom. So here's what I'm going to do. If you read the directions on the bottle of your shock with this product in particular, it tells you that this is a dry broadcast granular, and that you just take the scoop and you shake the granules directly into the pool. You absolutely can do that, but it also at the bottom of the directions says that if any granules settle to the bottom of the pool and come in direct contact with the liner, that you should start brushing the pool to stir that back up. Well, the problem with that is my pool is not crystal clear water right now. So how am I gonna know if these granules come into direct contact with the liner and set there. And I've had this happen before, and it will absolutely bleach out and discolor your liner if you have a liner pool. I have a liner pool. So I do not direct broadcast my refresh shock into the pool. I'm going to put a little water in my bucket, my empty bucket here. Okay. Now I'm gonna open this one up. And it comes with a 1 pound scoop. And I'm just gonna work with a pound at a time. So into that bit of water it goes. And now I'm gonna come over here to the side of the pool and I'm gonna finish mixing this up. Okay, and I want you to kind of see, if you can look in there, all of those granules have not dissolved. I still have some in the bucket that haven't dissolved. So I'm gonna fill this back up again with water until this 1 pound is completely dissolved. And then I'm gonna do this at least 2 more times. I did about 3 pounds yesterday. I wanna do about 3 pounds today. So 6 pounds total to give the pool the initial opening shock that it needs. So that's what I'm gonna work on off camera, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've got that 3 pounds of shock in there. It's evenly distributed around the edge of the pool. And there's still a chance that some granules of that shock slip through the crack. The hope is that at that point they're already so diluted that they will dissolve before they sit on the liner. So, you know, follow the directions. I'm not telling you not to follow the directions on the can. I'm just telling you that if you dry broadcast and you can't see the bottom and those granules settle to the bottom and you don't brush them up and stir them and brush them until they are fully dissolved, it will discolor your liner and mess up your liner. So there you go. There's your Horticulture Geek 2 cents on that subject. Now the next step is to put more algicide into the water. Like I said, I did a treatment last night and I'm gonna do a treatment today. And for an initial opening, if you have green or dirty or black water, you are going to need the super algicide. This happens to be by Regal. There are many varieties out there. Most of them come with different strengths. Like Regal has super, it has 60, it has 50, 40, 30, something like that. Like there's a stair step down. So once you get a crystal clear pool, you can use a lower dose algicide just as a maintenance product in your water. But if you're opening the pool like I am and you have a mess to deal with, you want the highest dose you can get. And like I said, this one has just happened to be called the super green algicide. So all we're gonna do here, take a clean bucket. We are going to put water into the bucket and then mix this liquid into that water. And that is per the directions here, because this is a blue tinted liquid. And so if this gets on your liner, concrete, stone, whatever you have around or in your pool, there's a chance that you will stain or dye your surfaces with this product. So you want to dilute it before it goes into the water so that you're not going to get this blue dye onto your pool. So I'm just going to go over here back on camera at the hose pipe, and we're going to get this mixed up, and then it's just an even distribution around the edge of the pool with this. And I'm going to be using half of this bottle. So I'm going to be using the entire bottle in total. I used half last night, and I'm using half today. All right, there's that task done. Let's move on to our next. Okay, so we're ready to tackle our next project now, which is filling in some ruts in the front yard. So if you were here for the video where we ripped the bushes out of the front yard to redo our landscaping, when we backed the truck up to those bushes to yank them out, it did leave some ruts in my yard. And so this season, as I have been switching out the soil in my containers, I have been collecting it. And so now I have a wheelbarrow full of soil. And I'm gonna use this to kind of start filling in those ruts in the grass of the front yard. You can use this kind of dirt, you can use sand. It depends on kind of what you're going for. I have this on hand, so this is what I'm gonna use. Here we go. All right, so I'm just gonna continue to water that soil in and get it to settle down into those divots, and then we'll be back to wrap up this video in just a minute. All right, so here is one of the projects that I did off camera, but it was in today's lineup, which was the exact same thing that we did over here. So I had this fuchsia plant that I picked up in a cheap plastic hanging pot from the garden center, and I transplanted it into this fun conical shape hanging basket that hangs here. So now it's all ready to go for the season, and you can't go wrong with a fuchsia. I mean, just a beautiful plant. So we've got that looking good. So now let's go take a look over at the swing arbor at these hanging baskets. So here we are at the swing arbor. We've got our beautiful petunia baskets into our nicer basket here. So easy, simple project on either side of the swing arbor. And then while we're here, we'll look at this, because this was the exact same thing. I picked up a basket that had geraniums and a calibrachoa in it and just popped it down into this urn. All right, let's go look at one of our other projects we did today. Here's this little hanging basket. So just got it on a little shepherd's hook here in this little shady-ish corner of the back garden here. So it's ready to go for the season. All right, guys, so today, or this weekend, was just a weekend full of odd and end jobs, random projects to get things going and finalized so we can just sit back and enjoy our garden for the season. Well, at least as far as those projects are concerned. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video. I tried to show you a few tips and tricks along the way and give you some ideas of how I'm handling things here in my garden this year. So hopefully that has inspired you as well. So there's still plenty of time to get out into your gardens, go find fun things in the garden centers and bring them back to your yard. And you know, if you don't have the time to buy 5 or 6 different plants and figure out what looks good together and put together your own baskets or arrangements, then you are absolutely do what I did. Go find pre-made container mixes, baskets, and multiple plant pots. They come in those cheap plastic things from the garden centers. You can pop those out and put them right into your own more decorative planters and baskets and bring that impact and that interest to your garden without having to do all of the work to get that product there. And a lot of times the garden center growers have been growing these plants for weeks now in their greenhouses. So these baskets are truly instant impact. Whereas if you go out and buy individual small plants, you're going to have to wait for those to get big. So either option is wonderful. I've done several planters both ways this year, and I do that every year. So it's just a matter of deciding where you want instant impact and where you want to save a few dollars and do it yourself and give them the time to grow. There is no wrong answer. Everything works as long as it looks good to you and it makes you happy. So that's our video for this week. Hopefully, like I said, it's inspired you. Get out in your gardens, get your hands dirty, do something fun. And I hope you enjoyed watching me do the pool a little bit. I know that's not really garden related, but it is part of my garden. And so there we have it. It's already looking much better. I would suspect here in a few days, probably another shock treatment, we'll have pretty clear water and we'll be swimming before too much longer. And then the garden obviously just looks so much better when we have our focal point ready to go as well. So guys, if you've enjoyed this video, please give me that thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, leave those down below. But until next time, from my garden to yours, I wish you all the best and happy gardening.